From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, future ag engineers are showing off their skills by building a better tractor. Why one researcher says African swine fever may already be at our doorstep.
I'm cautious when I say this, but near historic wind event at a scale and scope the likes of which we haven't seen in some time.
As hurricane-force winds hit California, adding fuel to portions of the state already in a tinderbox.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado and the all-new Silverado HD, the strongest, most advanced family of Silverados ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The wildfire problem in California is growing, and it's not just contained to one area of the state. In the northern California wine country, the Kincaid fire in Sonoma County is burning tens of thousands of acres. Almost 200,000 people have been forced to leave their homes. The fire is being fed by 70-mile-per-hour winds with gusts topping 100 miles per hour. The wildfire doubling in size over the weekend, reaching more than 54,000 acres. Has destroyed 94 buildings thus far. Containment is only 5%. Millions of people in Northern California spent their weekend in the dark, with the power company cutting power to try and avoid having power lines spark fires. And just as the power comes back on, the utility is warning it might have to cut power again, with a forecast of strong winds expected to last until tomorrow. Now in Los Angeles, airplanes are dropping water and fire retardant in the battle against a destructive fire burning on the western side of Los Angeles. The fire erupted early Monday morning where a highway passes through the Santa Monica Mountains. About 10,000 homes and businesses are in areas subject to mandatory evacuation orders. The fire burning dangerously close to the Getty Center Museum. The mayor of Los Angeles says a wildfire burning in canyon neighborhoods on the city's west side has grown to 500 acres. Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency in response to the wildfires.
We've been battling fires all up and down the state now for close to a week. From San Diego, 2 major fires now that are 97% contained. Fires in Los Angeles County that have generated national headlines, in particular Tick Fire, where we feel we finally have got our arms around that fire. In fact, we're bringing some resources that were on that fire here into Northern California to tackle the challenges we're experiencing.
The so-called Tick Fire in the Santa Clarita area was reported 70% contained. It's reportedly destroyed 18 structures. The U.S. Trade Representative says China and the U.S. are close to finalizing some sections of a trade agreement between the two countries. High-level officials from both sides held phone conversations on Friday. Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer saying the gist of the basically completed Phase 1 deal includes halting additional U.S. tariffs against China. That's in exchange for a 2-year phase-in of Chinese purchases reported to be up to $50 billion worth of American farm goods. It also might include some measures to protect intellectual property. And this statement from the president sent stocks soaring on Monday.
Yeah, we are looking probably to be ahead of schedule to sign a very big portion of the China deal. And we'll call it Phase 1, but it's a very big portion. That would take care of the farmers. It would take care of some of the other things. It'll also take care of a lot of the banking needs. So we're about, I would say, a little bit ahead of schedule, maybe a lot ahead of schedule. Probably we'll sign it. I imagine the meeting is scheduled for Chile. I know they have some difficulties right now in Chile, but I know the people in Chile, and I'm sure they'll be able to work it out.
In a statement from China, the two sides also reached an agreement for the U.S. to import cooked poultry products from China. In return, Beijing will also lift the ban on American poultry exports. As for another round of China trade aid to American farmers, Farm Journal's Jim Wiesmeyer also reporting a decision on a possible second installment will be made by White House officials, including President Trump. That second installment decision is expected sometime next month, with a decision about the third due in January. Now, some farmers say the message has always been the same: trade, not aid.
Sure, there's farmers that won't survive, and it's tough for a lot of people, but farmers have a lot of residual, and we'll be here. And farmers aren't really looking for the government to bail them out. We would rather have it in market funds.
USDA reports it has paid out $5.94 billion for this second round of aid as of last Monday. The U.S. continuing the fight to prevent African swine fever from landing on American shores. But new research from the University of Minnesota College of Veterinary Medicine says the risk of ASF entering the U.S. hog population has nearly doubled in the last year. Dr. Andres Perez saying, quote, "It doesn't mean that we're going to have an epidemic, but at the same time, we believe there's a good chance the virus has already reached our borders," end quote. Perez and his team believes there's a high probability the virus has already made its way to a major U.S. hub via smuggled pork products. Now, so far, there have been no reports or indications of any outbreak here in the U.S. On the world trade front, South Korea is giving up its status as a developing country in the World Trade Organization. That's after criticisms from the U.S. Some see it as a move that may pressure China to follow suit. President Trump wrote a memo to U.S. Trade Representative Bob Lighthizer in July listing South Korea, China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, among others, as holding unsupportable developing country designations. Happening later this morning, a House Commerce Subcommittee is holding a hearing on those small refinery ethanol blending waivers. The hearing, entitled Protecting the RFS, the Trump administration's abuse of secret waivers. The hearing was called by two House Democrats saying in a statement, quote, "The Trump administration's abuse of EPA's waiver authority is undermining the RFS program and devastating the renewable fuel industry," end quote. Now, Republican Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa said last week that she would call for EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler's resignation if the agency doesn't ensure that 15 billion gallons of biofuels are blended as required under the RFS. Something pretty cool caught on camera recently in farm country. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen shares it with us in today's Crop Comments.
That's right, Clinton. Check out what Dan Priestler caught on camera at his farm in Nebraska. The aeration fans created a little vortex, almost like a little tornado. This is totally cool. And of course, this weather geek is geeking out about it. Speaking of weather, let's talk about the wind speed forecast today. And it's going to be on the windy side, especially out in the west, in the higher elevations, and then getting windier down into the Four Corners region as we get into the latter part of the day. Later on tonight, we see most of those winds dying down, hanging out though in the southwest, but then starting to increase in parts of the plains. That's because we have a low pressure system that's going to start moving on up to the northeast. You can see those winds spreading through much of the central and southern plains through the day on Wednesday. I'll have your national forecast coming up, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Weather has been on the minds of producers all over the country as harvest rolls in. Well, up next, to look at October's wintry weather and what it could mean for final harvest numbers. And the future of ag engineering may start with these students and one not so ordinary tractor.
Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
A shot or two of cold air in October took a bite out of the final days of the growing season. Tyne Morgan joins us from the Kansas City Speedway with what that may mean for final yields.
Here now with Arlen Suderman of INTL FC Stone. Arlen, beautiful day here, but a week ago had really cold temperatures. Kansas, Missouri saw some crops being damaged by frost and freeze, areas we didn't expect to see it. How widespread was this issue?
We really took the freezing temperatures across the Midwest. Now, east of the Mississippi River, we didn't have that many below freezing official readings, but we had frost all the way across in scattered areas to Pennsylvania, down south to Louisville. We brought the growing season virtually to an end west of the Mississippi in the Midwest. Hard freeze there. And so we've really brought it to an early end, just like we did in 2009. You can find a few other years. That means a wet, low test weight type of corn crop. We're going to have some green bean issues, some green oil issues, probably lower oil content in some of our beans as well. Quality is going to be the question. Low test weight, shrinkage in the bin.
Worst case, let's say it did impact, a huge number of acres and really show up in low test weight. When you look at the soybean, the size of the beans. Worst case, what could we drop our carry out to?
Well, different universities have different freeze damage levels, but if you just kind of use USDA's maturity levels and figure what could be a worst case scenario if everything went wrong, we could be looking at 30 to 50 million bushels of soybeans coming off just from the freeze, and up to 700 million bushels of corn.
And that doesn't even factor in if we do see a lower yield, if we do see a lower yield.
Exactly right, or the harvest losses in the fields because of the snow.
So that, it looks like some things, are really setting the stage for possibly higher soybean prices, possibly, if we see China come to buy at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Suddenly we could be going from a billion bushel surplus to all of a sudden maybe rationing demand.
Yeah, who would thought we would be under that thresh mark? What are we, lower at 460 now? Is that where we're at?
Lose 12 million acres and suddenly yields matter.
Thanks, Arlen. We really appreciate it. Let's take a quick break and then we'll have much more right here on Ag Day.
Contact Arlen Suderman by email at arlen.suderman@intlfcstone.com. What do you call someone who does dozens of jobs? A farmer. At Pioneer, we're proud to work with generations of American farmers in the most complex and rewarding industry on earth. So from your friends at Pioneer, thank you, farmers.
Meteorologist Cindy Clausen here looking at a weather map, and Cindy, one that we're watching pretty closely because not only have we had the winds out on the west coast, but now we're talking about a pretty major winter storm, even though it's not winter yet, coming through the middle of the country.
Exactly. We've had a lot of early season snow already, and we're going to be seeing a storm system coming out of the Rockies, and that's eventually going to be affecting the Plain States, and yeah, we're going to be getting that into the Corn Belt as well. To start off the day, we're really going to be watching this low pressure system here in parts of the Rockies, Wyoming, Colorado. This is moving to the south. Further to the east, you've got a low pressure system that's into kind of the upper parts of the Great Lakes. So we have rain, snow on the back side of that because all of that colder air is right here in the nation's midsection. We do have some rain down in Texas, parts of the southeast as well. Now watch what happens as we head through the day. That low moves to the south, so we see that snow spreading into parts of Nebraska, into northwestern Kansas, while we still see just bits of rain in the eastern part of the country. Overnight we go, and then we start to see a lot more moisture being picked up. So look at the snow in Nebraska and Kansas. The south side of that's going to be rain, where you have a fine line there between that rain and snow. The low starts to dip down, but then moves up to the north as we get into our Wednesday. So all that moisture is going to be moving off to the northeast. So on the back side of that, we see that snow moving into Iowa. On the east side of that, you see more rain, but this low is going to be moving up to the north. So that's going to be affecting parts of Wisconsin into the Great Lakes as well. All right, this is the past 24 hours, and it hasn't really amounted to a lot as far as actual liquid precipitation is concerned. But when you add on the next 24 hours, we see some heavier rain in the southeast, and look at how that really just blossoms over the southeastern almost quarter of the U.S., getting into the Corn Belt and even up into parts of the southern Great Lakes, where we have a lot of moisture there. Most of it rain, the backside of that in the form of snow. So here's what the snow looks like. The past 24 hours has mainly been in those higher elevations. Add on the next 24 hours and look at how that snow starts to move into especially Nebraska and Kansas. And folks, that darker color there, that's 8 to 12 inches. Yikes. Yep, winter is coming, folks. Temperatures, look at this, highs only in the teens in parts of the northwestern United States, 40s, where some really chilly air is moving all the way into parts of the Corn Belt, the warmer air to the south and to the southeast. Into the overnight we go, we might even be getting down into the single digits in spots. And then as we get into tomorrow, we're going to see those high temperatures only in the teens once again in parts of the west, and some 30s and 40s to the east. You can see a fine line between the cold air and the more mild air to the east. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check out the weather where you live. Manson, Washington, mostly sunny and cold today with a high of 41 degrees. Heading over to Sydney, Nebraska, snow likely for you with a high of only 21. Troy, Alabama, showers likely with a high of 73.
Another reason cattle prices are up may have to do with the current supply situation. We'll have new cattle on feed numbers. Those are coming up. Plus, inbreeding in Holsteins, why researchers say there's cause for concern.
Hey y'all, Justin Moore here. Get ready to kick up some dust with the Roxor Dirt Roads and a Country Show sweepstakes. Enter now for a chance to win a customized off-road Roxor and 2 VIP tickets to one of my upcoming concerts. Visit roxoroffroad.com/Justin Moore.
New numbers show cattle on feed are down 1%. Cattle and calves with capacity of 1,000 or more head totaled 11.3 million. The inventory was 1% below this time last year. The inventory that includes more than 6 million steers and steer calves was down 3% from the previous year. Placements in feedlots during September totaling more than 2 million head. That's 2% above 2018, and marketings were 1% above last year. The level of inbreeding in Holsteins continues to increase. New research from AgSource says the current overall level of inbreeding in Holstein calves born this year stands at 8%. Now that number is still considered to be a moderate level of inbreeding, but researchers say that average doesn't tell the whole story. One researcher says there has been a significant shift in distribution in only 7 years, saying the majority of Holstein cows born in 2011 fell in the low to moderate category. However, calves born in 2018 now fall in the moderate to high category. Researchers attribute the use of artificial insemination and genomics as one reason for the increase. The second, they say, is shorter generation intervals. Coming up, the ag engineers of tomorrow, picking apart the tractor of today. You have to see what these students are creating next in the country.
Hey y'all, Justin Moore here. Get ready to kick up some dust with the Roxor Dirt Roads and a Country Show sweepstakes. Enter now for a chance to win a customized off-road Roxor and 2 VIP tickets to one of my upcoming concerts. Visit roxoroffroad.com/Justin Moore.
The quarter scale tractor team at the University of Nebraska has pretty big bragging rights this year. They're the reigning international champions. National videographer Russ Natusco introduces us to a team that's relishing a win while working on a repeat performance for 2020.
And what's our pulling capacity going to be?
We're shooting for 3,000 pounds pulling capacity.
It's a quarter scale tractor, and that's just the name of the competition. I don't know that it's really quarter scale. I mean, some of these tractors are pretty huge these days. But all they get to start with is a 31 horsepower Briggs & Stratton engine and 2 rear tires and some rules they have to comply with, and they're told, go and design a tractor.
I always kind of knew I wanted to be an engineer of some sort, being as when I was younger. I'd always like to tear into like little remote control cars, rebuild them and stuff, and tinker with things.
So there'll be a joystick plant.
I grew up side by side with my dad, and he owns a mechanic shop back home. I saw him struggle over and over again to find ways to fix what's going wrong all the time. And I wanted to get a chance to put my own input in design for that.
What if we put the battery up here?
The skills that they have to display to be successful are exactly what an engineering team working in industry has to display.
So this is kind of our first rendering of the model that we're going to have for the tractor this year. Basically, this is what we're going to use to get our sheet metal order out and be able to start building it here shortly.
You're not going to get a lot of respect if you show up with the same exact tractor as you did last year. You just bring it again. Especially, I mean, even since we won, we still got to find ways to improve on what we did. I think a lot of that is making a new product and improving on what we had last year.
Ag engineering implies a farm kid. And so as soon as they introduce themselves as an agricultural engineering major, it's just immediately assumed that they have the work ethic and high character that farm kids typically display.
It'll prepare me again for my future career because I know I'll be working on a team of 5 people once I start my full-time job in June.
They've generally been able to leave this team and go out into an engineering job and find success in it.
How does that make you feel?
Makes me feel like we're doing our job right here, you know, because that's what we're trying to do is turn out engineers.
Everyone here would kind of become a sort of a smaller family, and everyone knows each other. I just think that's one of the great things that also comes out of it besides an education factor.
I love seeing these kids graduate, but you know, I love even more seeing them going to one of their weddings a few years later and realizing, well, it's the other quarter scale captains that are the groomsmen or the bridesmaids or whatnot in the wedding. And you know, the relationships that they've built are so strong and lasting through this program.
All right, thanks, Russ. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Spend part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.